Alright guys, I got another little project to tackle here on the C10. In this video we're going to be fabricating a new coolant reservoir. Now there's several different names that people tend to call these things. I've heard expansion tank, I've heard puke tank. I just refer to it as a coolant reservoir, just kind of that simple. This one's not that bad. It's dirty as all hell, and it's broken right there where the tube drops in from the radiator to either fill this up or to draw fluid out of it, and I'm missing the cap. Now I got online to one of the vendors that I usually go to for my truck parts. The reservoir itself was about $18, and a replacement cap was only $3. So it's pretty inexpensive just to replace this thing, and it would save me a lot of time. But that's not a lot of fun. So I'm going to annotate a card. I think YouTube's calling them cards now. It's either going to be up in this corner of the screen or maybe over here. I can't quite remember. There's going to be a link to this aluminum fan shroud that I recently built. And it was a two-part video series. At the end of that video series, I mentioned that I was really happy with the way that my welds turned out on this aluminum. I don't have a lot of practice or a lot of experience TIG welding aluminum, and I mentioned that I wanted more aluminum projects. So that's what this is. We're going to fabricate the new coolant reservoir out of aluminum. So let me move over here to the workbench. I'll show you the materials, I'll show you some of the parts that we're going to be using, and we'll go ahead and get started on this. Okay, so we got our tank removed. And like I said, we're going to be making this out of aluminum. Now this is 5052 aluminum. It's 80 thousandths thick. It's the exact same material that I used on the fan shroud. This is in fact the leftovers that I had from that project. So we got a couple of big pieces here. I almost certainly have enough for this project. And here's one other part. And I got this from Bung King. And this is actually the only part that we're going to use. These little bungs right here, you're kind of getting a sneak peek. That's for another project that I have to do over there on the C10. But this came from Bung King. This is a small little filler cap here. Just a small aluminum filler cap. Nice threaded piece. This is actually what gets welded to the tank. And then of course we got the cap with the little O-ring on there. Now the thread is 1 1/4 inch diameter, 12 threads per inch. And then the material this is from the Bung King website, is 6061 T6 aluminum. So that's certainly a much higher grade of material than we really need for this project, but that's what they make them out of. So that's what we're going to use. So we got the aluminum, we got our fittings. Now we just need to get started. The first thing we're actually going to do, I'm going to go dig around in my cache of just cut off pieces of metal. I need to make a structure, sort of a jig for this tank. You can see here's one mounting lug, and there's two more on this side. So I'm going to build kind of a jig off of the original tank as something to use for mocking up the new tank. So let me go dig around in my steel pile. We'll come up with some material and we'll start making that jig. Alright, this is just a few of the pieces that I grabbed out of my trash can full of little shorty pieces of scrap material. I don't think I'm going to be using the square tubing. I think I'm going to be using these 3 pieces right here. These 2 pieces you could see the weld seam on there on both sides. This was some rectangular tubing or something like that that I cut. Don't remember why I cut it like I did, but I'm pretty certain that's what it was. So we have 2 pieces. They're exactly the same. So we're going to use these 2 to start with. We're going to lay them flat like this. We'll weld this joint right here. And then we'll take our existing reservoir and we'll set it on there like that. We have the 2 mounting holes, one here, one up here. And we'll drill through that and we'll put some fasteners in there. And then let me move the camera around and show you the other side. Alright, then on this side, we just got this piece of 1x1 1/8 inch thick angle iron. We'll take this and we'll weld this piece down here to this piece of material, And of course, drill a hole through there that matches up with our tab. And that will pretty much be our jig. Now, of course, I'm going to cut all this to length. We'll lop that off there, just so we don't have a real bulky jig. And then right here on the inside, let me move the camera one more time and show you this little space in here. All right, so like I said, I wanted to show you this gap right in here. Now this standoff here, this actually bolts to the battery tray. This mounting lug right here, it attaches to the battery tray. And it is dished in here for a reason. So I want to mimic this extension right here on my new tank. So in this area right here, I'll make some kind of a standoff. I might just use another little cut-off piece of this angle iron. Make a little standoff here, kind of goes right up to that radius right there, that edge where it flares out, just as a marker, more or less, to know where to make that bend. So I know it'll start there and go out to here. So that's the plan for the jig. So I guess we'll just go ahead and get started fabricating the jig. I think I'm just going to MIG weld this just to make it quick and easy, because it doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to work. So we'll make the jig, and we'll keep rolling on this project. Alright, so I've written down some measurements there on that card, and I'll let you know what they are. We're going to do 10.5 inches of total height. The width here is going to be 6 inches, and the dimension here is going to be 6 inches. So, basically, and the box, the actual overall width of the reservoir itself is actually only going to be 5 inches, but I'm giving myself an extra inch. As you can see how it dips in right there. That extra, the reservoir that I'm producing is not going to have this little divot right there. Same with this one here on the bottom. I'm going to make, when I fold my sheet metal, it's just going to go straight down from there. So I'm leaving 1 inch of basically a flange out here for this mounting bolt and this mounting bolt as well. This over here, this tab, this ear, I'm going to fabricate that out of separate pieces. So I'll cut a piece that goes up like that, and I'll probably have another little brace going across in this manner. So let me get my material out, and I'm going to actually try and fabricate the reservoir out of one piece of aluminum. The reservoir itself, this will be separate pieces. Then we're going to have a bottom and a top on there. Those will all be separate pieces. But the rectangular cube portion of the reservoir, I'm going to try and make it out of one piece of aluminum. That way we only have one weld seam, which in all likelihood will probably be down here on this side. So that's what I'm going to try and do. So let me get the material, and we'll make a quick cut on there, and then we'll get our dimensions. Okay, as I just mentioned, the dimensions of the reservoir that I'm going to build 6 inches in width, 6 inches in depth, however you want to call that, and 10.5 inches in height. So, and like I said, I'm going to try and produce this out of one piece of the aluminum. So we got 6 inches along the bottom, 6 inches there. Basically, we got 24 inches around. So we would need a 24-inch piece. This piece of material, it has a flange on this side, which I'm going to cut that off. But if I cut that off, I can get 25 inches. I'm going to cut my material at 25 inches. I'd rather have a little bit more than not enough. So we'll lop that off at 25 inches, and then we're going to make a cut across like that at 10.5 inches. That'll be our first piece, and then we'll try and bend that up. Okay, just like we did on the fan shroud, just using some square tubing as a kind of makeshift, simple sheet metal brake. So I'm going to measure off here 6 inches. We're over. Take that one off. Maybe this will be easier without it. Alright, get that snug down. Let me double check. Yep. Yep. So this time I'm just going to force it down. Hopefully I won't have to hammer on it. I'd rather not put hammer marks into this, but it kind of is what it is. So just go ahead and bend it. To get a nice flat edge on here, I am going to have to hammer on it a little bit. Not too bad. It's got this kind of little bit of a curve right there where that was just for me hand bending it. But for what I'm using, the square tubing, looking not too bad. So just got one more break that we got to make in there. I got to figure out how I'm going to set this up to do that. All right, I've moved over here to the sawhorse because it gives me a little bit of depth here to get the box kind of underneath. Now, for this bend, I'm only measuring off 5 inches because remember that's the width. Now, I'm doing that because this area down here, we're going to leave that as a flange for those 2 mounting bolts there on the side. So, I'm only going to measure off this side at 5 inches. That looks good. That seemed to have changed a little bit. Looks good. All right, that looks good too. I'll go grab the clamps. Alright, so I'm going to have to go on faith that my distance, my dimension didn't change, my measurement didn't change, because it's hard for me to basically measure from this face to this face back here with this tube in place. So I guess we'll just try and bend it up now. Okay, so we're not able to complete this because basically we have interference issues right here. It doesn't really make a difference if this leg right here is the flange, this material, or this material right here on the edge, because we haven't established a top and a bottom yet, so it's still basically has several different mounting options at this point. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to cut 1 inch off of this piece right here to make it match this dimension down here, which is 5 inches. So this flange right here, this will be our flange. This bit of material right here will be our flange. So I'll get my Sharpie, tape measure. All right, make a straight line there, and then we'll make that cut. Alright, well here's what we got. Not that bad. I think we're going to have to get a little bit creative. That leg needs to come out, be more of a 90 degree. I think we're going to have to get kind of creative with our fixturing and our clamping when we go to weld this joint. We got basically a T-joint right there that we need to weld up. But not too bad considering what I had to work with, which was just the square tubing. Hammer marks sure look like crap. Really aren't any right there. Some right there. This won't get seen. This will probably be up against the core support right there. These will be visible. But nonetheless, it's a box. Just needs to be welded. So first thing we gotta do, let's test it out in the little jig, the fixture that we made using the old reservoir. Let's see how it fits up in there. All right. You see the hole Can you see the hole? Yeah, you can kind of see the hole. That's one of our mounting holes right there. If I'm pushed all the way up against that backstop, then barely make that hole. Check up here. Up here, we're doing all right. I don't want to push it all the way up against this part. I want to bring it forward. Up there is good. Should be good. So we're clear there. Back here, I wanted to bring it forward. We had it's about right. I might have to get creative right here and allow room for that bolt. What I'm thinking is cut this at an angle, coming upwards like this, and then straight across on this side. So it kind of brings that up. That might be what it needs. If I want to bring that out where it's supposed to be. Probably the way I'm going to have to do it. Lop some off there, lop it off there. Then we'd have room to put the bolt right about in there. I'm going to have to think on that for a minute. But that's likely what I'm going to have to do. So let me think about this for a couple minutes and then I'll bring you back. So we're looking here at the spot where that reservoir is supposed to go. Now from the beginning I knew this is a repop core support. It's a kind of made in China, made in Taiwan sort of thing. It doesn't have all the mounting locations. This is not a mounting location for the reservoir, nor is that right there. The actual only one that I have for the reservoir is that little hole right there on the leg for the battery tray. So I'm gonna have to fabricate, or I'm gonna have to drill new mounting holes in this core support regardless of if this new reservoir matches the bolt pattern and the mounting locations of the old reservoir. So this kind of doesn't really matter because I can drill it out here because I got to drill a new one anyway. So I'm just going to make it easy on myself. And since I got to drill new holes anyway, we'll just keep it as is, keep it simple, and work with it like that. So let's just keep going on this project. Alright, it took a good 15, maybe 20 minutes to get this thing kind of clamped up. It's a little wampus. I mean, obviously the bends are not perfect, and it did kind of kick down just a little bit, so I had to almost push it up a little bit and get it clamped in place. But we're looking pretty good at all the corners. So I got a couple clamps there on the inside holding some extruded aluminum angle, and that's kind of holding this piece in its final position. Then got a couple of little vice grips holding this piece to the aluminum angle. So that's the setup. So let me just fire up the welder and we'll get a few beefy tacks on this thing. So I've got the reservoir fully tacked up. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and lay this weld here. I don't think it's gonna interfere with anything that we have to do later on. Because basically we just gotta weld a cap, you know, bottom or top, not sure. Actually, I think this will be the top, bottom, and then the bracket over here for that third little mount. So I'm just gonna go ahead and weld this seam right here. So as you can imagine, I'm not super thrilled with the quality of this weld. I'm not sure what the problem is. It's probably a combination of things, including myself, most likely myself, but it's just a real trashy weld. And this is the exact same material that I used to make that fan shroud, and the welding on that fan shroud looked a hell of a lot better. But other than being ugly, I'm quite certain it'll hold. It'll be watertight, which is kind of the primary purpose. So we'll keep going, and hopefully these welds will get better. Okay, so I've been inside online doing some research, trying to figure out why this weld came out so poor. Basically what I was looking at is it, say, the settings that I have set up on the machine? Is it a malfunction with a component, something in the torch, something with the regulator, with the welder, or is it my technique? What's making this weld so poor? And it's probably a combination of all three, to be honest with you, but what percentage of that is contributing to the worst of this is still undetermined. I don't quite know if it's, you know, the machine or a component or my technique that's doing the most damage. Now, what I did find out was that oftentimes, you know, I think we're going to start with the gas lens. From what I read, you know, this is a very small part, and they are making these in China now. I bought this one on eBay. So right there, it's highly likely that this is an import part. And from what I read, I was reading bulletin boards, message boards, some trade publications online, and some people even dislike the Radnor brand of gas lenses. But I don't know who manufactured this one. All it has on there is the dimensions, 3/32 or 2.4 millimeters. So it's for a 3/32 electrode. I don't know, but I got it on eBay, so I'm pretty certain it's imported. So, got online. You know, I was online, went to a vendor and ordered up some more gas lenses. And the ones I ordered were manufactured by CK Worldwide, which is the same company that makes the torch. They're a very reputable manufacturer of welding supplies, welding gear and welding supplies. So I ordered up 5 new 3/32 gas lenses because at least as of right now, the only electrodes that I have are 3/32 of an inch in diameter. So I got some quality gas lenses coming. So it's going to take a couple days for those to get here. In the meantime, we're not going to do any welding until I get those new gas lenses in, but we still have some work we can do. We need to fabricate the top plate, bottom plate, or the cap, and we still have to make the little bracket that goes off and mounts to the brace that holds up the battery tray. There's that mount there. So there's still some work we can do. But I'm not going to do any welding until I get those parts in here, and even then I'm probably going to do a few test welds on some material, some pieces I actually cut off to get this piece right here, just so I know I'm working with the exact same material and I can rule that out. You know, because another possibility, it could be my prep work on the material. So we're trying to do process of elimination and rule things out. But in the meantime, we're going to go outside. We're going to cut some more pieces here, and we'll get those fabricated, and then when the new parts come in, we'll come back in here and do some more welding. So let me get the camera, we'll step outside, get the material, get the tools, and cut out these pieces.